It is 8:40 right now, and time to visit with our good friend Rekha from the Des Moines Register to find out what in the world's going on. Hi, Rekha.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Did you have a good feasting weekend?
Oh my gosh, huge feasting. Yes, day after day after day. I could not fit into any of my clothes by the end of the long weekend. That's
Wow.
a good sign of good feasting,
That was a
right?
lot of feasting.
All right, so we're getting back on track now, right?
Yes, and so as I was mentioning earlier, I turned on the TV this morning and saw this glassy-eyed Peruvian guinea pig.
Oh, I thought you meant me. I'm sorry.
No, besides you and your twin, we're sitting here, and I thought it was dead at first because it was just like stuck frozen in this expression. What did you do to it, Lou?
Well,
you scared the pants off that thing.
Didn't make any noises or anything. No, it just had camera. It was camera shy. That's all.
Do animals get that? They get camera shy?
I don't know.
I
Must
think
be
they
with
get
the bright
camera shy
lights.
and they don't want to be woken up early like the rest of us. You know, it's like,
But
thanks.
in case you missed
Thanks
it,
for putting me on TV early in the morning.
Blank Park Zoo brought in a long-haired guinea pig this morning, and Rekha mentioned she used to have one too.
I used to have one. His name was Mukchu. It was a Peruvian guinea pig. My sister showed up one day. Mukchu. She named it. It was a Peruvian name, I guess. My sister comes to the dorm in graduate school in New York. She shows up at the apartment with this big guinea pig in hand and says, "Here you go, Mukchu, Christmas, Merry Christmas." Who has time, you know, when you're in grad school, like working around the clock to take care of this guinea pig? But I kept it for a couple of years, and then unfortunately I met its demise. But it was very sweet.
There you go. So again,
Yeah.
Rekha with a guinea pig.
It had its way. It, you know, plodded around the apartment, leaving its little markings.
Anyway, so what are we talking about here this morning?
So we're talking about my Sunday column, which was, this is, I think, a really interesting and thought-provoking story about a mother whose son had cerebral palsy. It was discovered when he was about 17 months old. And he went to school for the first 8 years in a parochial school in northern Iowa. She did not want to be specific about what town it was in. She now lives in Des Moines. And he was bullied in that school, and he used to come home and talk about it and feel really bad about it. And she went to see the principal a couple of times, she said, but nothing was really done. Then he went on to a public high school and did well. And he was a very enthusiastic young man who just really believed, you know, kept a journal and wrote little sayings for himself to keep himself motivated, and just really sweet disposition. And he was in Toastmasters. He was learning how to do public speaking.
Sure.
He died 2 years ago of an aneurysm, just very suddenly of an aneurysm in the brain. And his mother went to his apartment, which was in Grimes, and found this journal right next to the table where she had been the day before and she hadn't seen it. So obviously he had pulled it out and had been writing, and it was next to the chair where he sat. And it talked so much about the bullying in the first 8 years. And she said she hadn't realized that he had carried that away with him for so long, that it was still weighing on him, even though, you know, afterwards he had been successful and he had held down a full-time job, he lived on his own, that he still was sort of tormented by the things that made him different, as illustrated by the things that these bullies would say. They would imitate the way he walked or the way he talked, or make fun of him, tell him he wasn't capable of anything when the teacher left the room in class. This is the first 8 years of schooling. And so, you know, he was just asking, everybody tells me that I can do whatever I want, and, you know, people with disabilities can succeed and achieve anything, but in his case, he said, these people want to hold me back. His mother read this, and she was so upset and so moved by it that she wrote a letter to every one of his classmates at the school, from kindergarten through 8th grade, and to the teachers. And she said, if any of you was involved in the bullying, please come forward and tell me about it, and just give me a sincere apology. And if you weren't, but if you just knew him, send me a little anecdote, a little remembrance of him that's nice, something that you liked about him. And she got a lot of responses.
I was going to say, did anybody respond?
Did any of the bullies respond?
A lot of people did. Well, so about 3 or 4 bullies, actual bullies, did respond, and they said they were so sorry, and they were very sincere, and they said, you know, we never realized that it bothered him because he didn't show it, and he always seemed so happy, and they were profoundly apologetic. And then some other people said, I remember him well, I didn't bully him, but I'm so sorry for your loss. They were really heartfelt, thoughtful letters. And then she'd written a separate letter to the teachers, and they also, you know, talked about remembrances of him. And one of them said, don't blame teachers, they can't be everywhere all the time. But, you know, these are the things that have changed since then, and we've made a lot more progress in schools in terms of protocols, education, and so on. But that in the age of cyberbullying, there's very little you can do, because kids can be completely demeaned and they're defenseless, they're exposed out there. Anyway, there was one kid, unfortunately, who she said she really wanted to hear from, and he was someone who had been kind of a jock. And her son had bought a baseball glove of his later on down the line and always wanted to return it to this bully, just to have a face-to-face contact with him and say, you know, kind of acknowledge me, look at me, I'm real and you really hurt me. And he wasn't able to do that in his lifetime. So the mother made it her mission to go and confront this kid with this baseball glove and return it to him. And she wrote to him, he didn't write back. She wrote to his parents. They were very angry and said, you know, kind of cease and desist, and if you continue to contact us,
Really?
yeah, we're going to call, you know, a lawyer. But they also said, if you're really insistent, and they're saying he has no recollection of ever having done anything like this, he didn't do it. But they said, if you insist on returning this glove to him, we will meet you at a police station somewhere and you can do it. And so that's what happened. And she didn't get any apology, and she didn't get any sort of acknowledgement of what had happened back then. But she said, I handed the glove over to him, and now it's his burden, and it's not mine anymore. So it's a really kind of interesting approach that this mother took, and I think, you know, some people would question whether that was safe, whether that was smart, whether she was putting the onus on other people, but I think she said it was unfinished business that her son had, and that she felt like she had to complete it for him.
What's your reaction to something like this?
My reaction is that I think she needed it for herself, and in the process of doing it, she gave a really good education to kids. And a lot of these kids are now parents, because her son, by the time he died, he was in his 30s, and so a lot of them have families of their own. And they, you know, some of them wrote about, now I look at my nephews and nieces and I see, you know, what they have to deal with, and it makes me more aware of how cruel kids can be to each other and how we need to be more mindful. So my reaction is that I think it was a wake-up call, and I think the onus is really on schools to do more if they're not doing it. And it is true that teachers can't be there all the time, but there needs to be education done of every single student, which perhaps there is more of these days, I don't know, you know, of what it can do to a child's self-esteem, especially if you're different in this day and age. And I think that it also is very contemporary, because there is so much bullying that we see going on in so many different areas of life, not just children but adults. And you know, some of these people grow up and continue their bullying in ways that, you know, are even more destructive.
How long ago did this exchange happen?
This exchange happened 2 years after his death.
Okay.
So, so yeah, and she's still, you know, she hasn't been ready to talk about it until just now, and now she was ready to talk about it.
And she hasn't heard anything in addition from this person?
Since my column ran on Sunday, I don't know if she's heard anything more. This person, by the way, he did send a note when she sent the original class message saying, you know, sorry for the loss, but nothing about I was one of the people who bullied you. So I don't know, what's your reaction?
Mine is that it's a great reminder that words matter and can hurt people. What might seem like a joke to me can obviously really affect someone, and it's you don't think years beyond. You know, it's one thing when you're, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 and you're saying something and being catty, but that child held that with him that long in life. It makes you think about the words that we use and how they can be really hurtful.
I know.
I mean, I can see from their perspective, it's like if it wasn't a joking matter and we were all kids and we've all done silly things, and, you know, when a mom's coming after you years later, I can see it's like, whoa,
getting
whoa, whoa,
defensive.
whoa.
But to their credit, most of them wrote back such sweet letters and said that they actually applauded her courage in doing this, and said it really took a lot of courage for you to get out there and do this, and obviously your son really mattered so much to you, and you guys had such a great relationship.
Is she publishing anything like this, or this this is just
No.
something she personally
This is
needed
something
to
she
do.
just needed to do
I would
personally
say she
on
needed
his
to
behalf.
have that item and then
Yeah.
and finish the task.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And she needed to do it for her own soul. You know, she needed to confront these people who had, and I mean, it's so many years later, it was difficult to track them down. It was
Right.
it was a big deal. They're all grown up now, and some of them have moved away.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months to see
Yeah.
whether or not they make contact with her again. And
Exactly.
and do the apology that she is seeking
I
for
wonder.
him.
I mean, I wonder. You know, this young man, the one who she was calling the bully. I wonder how it's going to affect him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he got defensive initially. Maybe his parents got defensive. But maybe down the line, it'll really seep
Sink in,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
that-
guarantee that person's thinking about it.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. So it's a very interesting approach. And also, of course, I mean, the whole issue of being different, of having differences, of being differently abled. Kids need a lot of education in accepting and appreciating differences. And I think we've made a lot of progress in that sphere. There's much more education and diversity training and all of that, but not enough. Not enough. So.
Okay.
I agree with
Wonderful.
that.
All right. Well, good. Good job on Sunday. If people want to see that
you.
article, can they go back and
Yes,
take a look at
absolutely. It's online and it's in the Sunday paper. They can always write to me.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much.
Rekha.
Thank
It
you.
is 8:51 right now, and we will be right back. And when we return, what was the #1 selling sports jersey on Monday for Cyber Monday? We'll let you know who has it. That's coming up next.